Okay, so I'm not a gatekeeper. I like to share, I like to make sure that people know what's going on and how I do things because it's not about giving you the information, it's about if you have time and also the patience to go through the steps. First and foremost, if you don't know who I love SuiteDash and I'm a junkie, but here I am today creating a 1040 process for a tax professional. And yes, as a disclaimer, I do have permission to showcase this information, and any information that is sensitive will be screened. So don't worry about it. However, we are going to talk through some of the things that I love about SuiteDash and why I think it's the greatest tool for tax professionals, bookkeepers, any service provider in general, and why I love doing this process through portal pages. If you have not watched any of my other videos, I would say just take a second to pause and go and watch that. But if you have, then let's get to the meat of it. First and foremost, I'm a person who likes to create these step-by-step processes through portal pages. Portal pages give me the accessibility to first allow the right people to see it and then to move them along on one page so that I don't have to create a ton of different pages. If you look inside of my portal pages here, you'll only see one of these inside of this process because I'm creating 1040, 1060, and then doing all the things, but I've created one of this process already. So this process for the lead onboarding. So as they come through the process, they have the step-by-step process here for their welcome, discovery call. They have the ongoing process for uploading items, and then they have the waiting for next steps process. I think it's important to put people through steps rather than them going through a entire feel of, well, what's next? I have to touch buttons. I have to do this. So giving them the order of formation and then navigating them through it once they complete a step gives them that kind of satisfaction when they say, oh, I've hit submit. Now next, what do I do? Um, so what I'm doing is creating the 1040 process, and I'm going to tell you a bit about what I've done so far to give you the context of where we're going to go for this video. This is not going to be a 10-minute video. This will probably be about 45 minutes because this is going to be a thorough process. I'm working through this now, and I want to make sure that I test and go through it. So you'll see all of that inside of it. So stick with me if you can. First thing I've done is created some circles. The good thing about portal pages is that I can create circles at this level, meaning that I can literally just click add circle and then I can name the circle, describe the circle, and then add users to the circle if I wanted to. I can also be fancy and add color, but it presets one, so I don't have to, does all the things. The other thing is that I want to make sure that if my internal team or staff needs to have that circle access, and I'll check this here as well, I don't think that this team will need it. However, I do want to make sure that I call this something that will be memorable and that the client will make sure that they understand this is what this is for. So I have this menu group to be the 1040 group. So all of the 1040 process will go through this group. Then I also went ahead and to make this easy for the client, I've went ahead and named this the page title of 1040 and then the menu title of the same thing. It gives the value that it just allows them to understand what's going on without being confused. Down here, I have also then created a couple things. I created some boxes or some rows rather, and in each row, I've then allowed certain people to see those rows so they're hidden. How did I do that? First thing is I want this top row to always be seen by everyone. So at this access level here, I don't hide it from anyone and I don't show it just to one person. I show it to everyone. So this is going to be the default row that will always be displayed inside of this process. However, starting at this level, I went ahead and edited this access to only be for the 1040 access. I'm going to do some naming updates. So just to make it easier for the client, instead of it just being 1001, even though I'm going to make like a little small directory for them, I also am going to make it easy for them so that they could be able to understand what these circles are. And as we go through this process, you're going to understand why I do that because a lot of things connect to each other. So if you can see here, this 1040-01 process is going to be what I will do for the 1040 clients. Now, I'm going to just make a quick edit to this, and I'm going to actually take this section here and I'm going to do X and then the remainder of that as well. I'm going to hit save. So this would be displayed to the client as, oh, okay, so this is the communication agreement. And then I'll do the same thing here. I'll just go ahead and edit this quickly, and then I'm going to copy this, do X, okay, engagement letter. Continue doing this for a second, and I'm going to show you why I do this in a moment. So let's understand why I check this button first. So the marketing is important because at specific stages, if I did not check this, I can't alert everyone who is inside of this exact circle about anything. But when I do check this, I can utilize the marketing campaigns to send out notification, updates. I can even just ask them, hey, why are you still stuck here? So I always make sure I check this box for any marketing towards that circle at that point. Now, I did update the process a little bit because this client has two organizers, and sometimes if there's not two organizers in here, I might want to change this. At first, it was just one, but I adjusted it accordingly. And so over here, you'll see that the naming conventions are not the same. And I also had an extra one here, but I'm going to release because I'm not going to do the spouse version in this portal page. I'm just going to actually exit out, but I'm going to hit save. And then because I've made updates here, I'm going to just hit refresh here so that the updates can reflect here as well. So you're going to see the updates here. And the next step that I do here as well is I always change the styling to make sure that I hide the actual page title. This is a little bit of a nuance, but it's not that serious. It just takes away that title that's at the top. And then I always like to change the background to a primary color or an image, depending on the type of vibe I'm feeling. But I'm going to do it as a default white because this client's vibe is very neutral and I love that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to hit save again. Now, if they are on this portal process, if they're on this 1040 process, I want them always to reflect back to this process. So one of the most important things that I do is start them at this page. And by doing this, then anytime that they complete a process, it navigates them right back to this page because that'll be their start page based on their circle that they're in. So I set that as a start page, and as you can see, those have also been updated. So I have no worries there. All right, so let's go through this process and let's understand what I've done thus far, because you can see most of this is already completed, but I've not done the automations. So a lot of it doesn't really function until I make it function. Now, I told you that I've already done this portion where this is going to be a defaulted form or field, sorry, row. And then this row is going to be defaulted to the amazing communication agreements circle. And then I'm also going to add another row, but because I want to change the column size, I did make this row a different spacing, but I did also add this to the communication. So you can see why the naming conventions are important, because I get to see from a high level what those are. I've taken the time as well to create buttons at each stage. Inside of like a flow, they would have the ability to say, hey, I need help, right? But because they're on a portal page, they don't have that help button. They can also ask for help by just clicking a regular button that you can create as a send message, and then they can open a new tab. You can change the sizing, you can make it custom, and I don't have to update these access options because this entire row is going to be accessible just to them. So no one else can be able to see this but them. Now in this box itself, I also have a text block. The text block is housing the information that I want to share with them. I'm a video girly. I love videos to kind of display the steps that's happening, but for a lot of people, they're more shy around videos. So instead, we create descriptive, text blocks for them to understand what the stage you're in. As well as I'm using a form block, which is pretty new. Form blocks are just the ease of being able to embed a form without having to go and get the embed code and then put it there. It's similar to a text block, but it literally just allows you to select the form that you want to use. And from this list, you'll hit save. Again, I don't have to change the access options because that as well is preset from this row. So the next stage that they will go in is the engagement letter. The engagement letter will also allow them to be in one stage in one circle. So I've gone ahead and updated this to that stage, which is the engagement letter circle. And then the second row that I've made, I've also updated the access to the engagement letter. So this gives you the ability to see high level what's going on. Inside here, you see the same things where I have a button, text block, and the form. And then it'll proceed like this. The only thing that's different here is that instead of having a form, I have a My Invoices block. So the reason why I found this to be useful is because sometimes it's easy for people to lose their space and they don't really know, oh, okay, well, what do I do next? Or where do I need to go? But because they just released the checkout form feature, I actually might replace this My Invoices block with a checkout form and just have them complete that form as an embed so that they can check out immediately on the screen, which I believe would be more effective than me having them go to their inbox. I'm sorry, go to their invoices and then click a button, then open the invoice and pay all the things. If they complete that form, then that form itself will be the trigger to move them forward. Now, I know it's a fairly new feature and it's a kickoff form, so it doesn't really allow you like an update form to move from one automation to the next, meaning one circle to the next. But I'm sure that if I play around with it a bit, that I can actually have it do what I need it to do, which is once they pay, then I can add a trigger to say update the circles, and then that'll move them next to the organizer. Like most tax processors, they normally have them pay a deposit before they move forward to them filling out an organizer, but each year you have to fill out an organizer. So I went ahead and again here, this is going to be where I do some changes down at the bottom, but this is going to be the first organizer that they fill out. In this block, it has the information that I still want it to have. And then I have that same trigger for the organizer one. But down here, this is where I've made some adjustments because now this is going to show number 5. And you're going to see that this is the second organizers, which is perfect. And then you're going to see that this is going to be the second organizer because in here it says complete a second half of the organizer. And then they'll complete that form. Again, I've just already pre-done the forms. So that's there. Now, what's important is after they complete the second organizer, I need to generate a project generator. The reason why I create a project generator is because that is how the tax processor or the preparer would actually start to do the work. So let's take a quick look at an example of a project generator. And I'm going to see if I can provide you clean information without sharing details. So let me actually do it this way. All right, perfect. So inside of here, you can see all of my test items here. I've been working with this client for a while, making sure we refine his processes, and we've been doing a lot of work in the background, cleanup as well, but we're getting to the ending stages because of this amazing process that we're rebuilding out. But what we're gonna do is see what this would generate as as a project that would allow the client to move forward. Oop, click the wrong button. Let's go ahead and click on this in itself. So you can see that there's 15 tasks that are preset. And with those preset tasks, it gives you the outline of what you'll be doing. So reviewing, assigning, checking missing, additional, all of the things. So once they do that, then it allows you to also be able to provide them with updates. So one of the things that I do is I create a custom field that will toggle this progress bar. So this is just a Giphy that I've made off of Canva. I made it as a transparent Giphy, and I've also added information. People love to know where they are in processes. So what would happen inside of this process is that every time that they go through the steps of completing a project task, then it would automatically update the custom field that is going to be used as the calculator itself. The way that you'll do that is quite simple. Inside of these, what you'll do is you'll go to manage automation. And I've had it that it sends automations to them, meaning it sends them an email at each process. But what I'll also be adding is the actual custom field value setting. And that will mean that the custom field that I assign as that progress bar will then be updated by a certain percentage. The way that I add the percentage is based on how many tasks there are. So if there's 10 tasks that I know that has to be completed before the client will get 100%, then I'll update it by 10%. It's a very quick feature. It gives them the accessibility to see what's going on. And I like the fact that they feel confident in knowing where the process is, because at that point, you're like, oh, yeah, okay, they're almost done. They're halfway. Maybe they're at 90. So it gives that feature here. This is not currently completed because I have to create the custom field, then link it to this progress bar, as well as create the overall project task so that it's making sure it's linking in all the places. Again, I've added the questions field here just so that they could be able to click that button. And the approval process as well as the filing process are not completed yet. And you'll see what the next steps look like as well, so that you can understand why I did it this way. So now that you know everything, let's actually dive into doing the work. I'm going to do my best with actually speaking on what I'm doing, but I will be working quite quickly, and that means that I will be mostly silent, but you'll hear some lovely music so that you could be able to follow along. But with the overall information, you'll be able to understand why and where I did all the things. Now, I want to make sure in the beginning that my forms are going to transition correctly. So let's go and look at forms together to make sure that the first form that I have is going to automatically transition from this to the second form, which is this form here. So as you can see, the first form is called the communication form. The way that they are updated is based on the circles. So with an update forms are used to basically create these sense of automations. There's a lot of reasons why you should use them. In this specific video, I'm not going to go all into the details, but I'm going to show you what I have done. This form specifically is just a signature block because instead of using a document, I wanted them to stay in the process of completing items in the flow. So I could have also created a document and have that to be a link that takes them to the document center for awaiting signature. But because I feel very sure that a lot of times people don't like to go from one place to the next. They like to see things in one space. I made it so where when they click onto when they get to the agreement section, they'll automatically see the form embedded and they feel comfortable with moving to the next step because they can see it. So what this will do now is take them from the communication agreement and put them into the engagement letter. I don't need to remove them from all circles because maybe they're in a circle that is relevant to their status with you. So don't remove them from circles, but you can also feel free to add an automation that says, thank you, received. So you can send an email to do that. You can send a text message. There's an unlimited amount of options you can do. You can add them to a schedule, which essentially is another set of automations you could do. You can create certain items, like you can create a folder for them. You can generate a document if you really wanted to utilize this for document sending, all of the things, okay? But in this case, all I want to do is take them from one circle and add them to the next. So once that's set here, I'm going to more than likely just save this, and then I'm going to move forward to the next form from this location here. And the next form is going to be the engagement letter. And I have not updated the name. So as you've seen, I like to keep things consistent in terms of naming. The only difference here is that I have the prefix here as tax because when the person goes into their forms, they can know that this is related just to tax. And then they can also see, okay, X, and then it's going to match what the process is, which is going to be engagement letter. So again, I'm going to remove this welcome. I originally had the welcome that's sitting here on here, but I'm going to delete that welcome. And I'm going to also update this to say, please click here to sign. And then I'm going to put like this little, I'm sorry, I'm like, what is this? But the little colon, and then I am going to show you what it looks like without previewing it all together, and I'm going to save this. So what this is going to do now is update the way that it showcases, and I'm going to show you what that will look like here. So you can see that it just says, please click here to sign, and then, agreement. And then once you click on the click here, it allows you to sign it. I'm just going to close this window out. But I'm going to go back here and I'm going to go down to the automations, and the beauty is all that I wanted to do here is be able to add them to the deposit and remove them from the engagement. Now remember, this is pre knowing about the checkout forms. So the checkout form could have been a great option to just have in the third location here. But for now, because we already have an invoice generator created, we're just going to utilize this process until I get the okay and also until I test out what the process looks like for the overall kick off the checkout form process. So this is going to create that dynamic field, and it will allow me to update what that is. If I had a static, change in terms of if I wanted to update what that field is, then that would be there. But we're going to go ahead and save this. Now, after we save this, then I know that these two steps are doing what it needs to do. So the first step is going to go ahead and update. Once they sign it and they hit submit, it refresh jumps to here. Once they go ahead and sign and submit, then it takes them to this page. Now, there's no sign and submit option here, but I do need to make sure that once the invoice is paid, that it takes them from the invoice to the next step, which is the organizer. So how do we do that? Well, we're gonna go over to the invoice. So I'm going to navigate over to invoices, and I believe there is sensitive information here, so I will go ahead and transition over to that. And here we are. So this is the configuration for what it will look like for once they have completed and paid the invoice, and it will remove them from that deposit circle and add them to the new circle. And all I have to do is hit save, and we're gonna jump back into the other section. All right, so of course now we're at the organizer, and the organizers are the hefty parts. Now, a lot of times we don't want to pre-start work. We actually want to make sure that they pay their deposit, and then we want to make sure they fill out the organizer, because you could pay a deposit, but you actually don't complete an organizer, and that's just a pain in the butt, right? Because now you're waiting for them to actually send the information you need. The good joy is that if you want to just wait until this form is submitted, then you can do that. So we're going to go back over to my handy dandy forms. And we're going to look for that first organizer, which is this organizer here. And I'm going to go ahead and edit it. And I'm not going to even look at all of these beautiful things. I'm just going to go down and I'm going to look at the trigger automations. So this is going to be the important piece for me, because I need to add them to I need to add them to the second organizer. And this is going to be part 2. And I need to, oops, sorry, backwards. So we're going to remove them from 1. And we're going to add them to 2. Which, remember, what this is doing is removing them from this circle and adding them to the second circle here. So all I have to do is hit save and then hit save here. Now, this is obviously a naming convention that was created prior, but it's still related to tax. So I want to make sure that, it's still noticeable for the client. So I'm going to put tax, then bracket it out with organizer, and then I'm going to make sure that I have the organizer that it is. So I'm just going to put 1040, and then I'm going to then leave the remaining parts of it, because that was already noticeable for them before. And then I'm going to go ahead and go over to the second one. So if I click on second, it showed me this one. And this is going to be the organizer's second part. So what we're going to do here, once it loads, is update this first. So tax, organizer, I'm going to put 1040 at the front of this, and then I'm going to just save it. And then coming down towards the bottom, this doesn't already have triggers, so I want to add these triggers here. and I'm going to configure them to just add and remove me from some circles. So we're going to type in remove from circles, and I'm removing myself from the number 2 here, and you can see the numbers are going up. And then I'm going to add myself to the next circle, which on this side here, you'll see is going to be updates, right? So we're going to go to updates. I'm going to just type it in. But the only thing that I want to do as well is I want to make sure that the project generator is created at this point, because at this point I feel comfortable with moving forward with the process of then starting to do work for this client. Maybe it's not like your process, but I do think that it's always good to know that once you are trying to start something, you already have all the information to do that instead of having to wait for something. So this is going to be what's going to be created when they submit that. And this again is going to be that project generator that's going to update this next step here, which is going to then essentially update these fields, right? This little progress bar. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here, and I'm going to save it again. I like triple saving just because at the point, at this point, I feel like you can't save things enough. We're gonna go over to the actual custom fields because I do want to add the custom fields that will be updated. I'm gonna make mine very simple because I think it will just be able to be tracked well. So what I'll say is 1040, and then I am going to call this progress update. And this is just to link it to this progress bar. And I can add it if I wanted to. Progress bar update, all the naming conventions are up to you. And I'm just going to again copy this over to this field here because I know that this is not going to be one that's manually updated. It's just for a placeholder for me to see it when I'm pulling it through the task projects. And then I'm going to make this available to contacts. So the reason why I make this available to contacts and not company is because a contacts field is very universal, and you can utilize those contact fields to toggle on if you want them to be seen by companies. It's a very unique trait, but because contacts was formed before companies, they still have that ability to be utilized in that space. And then I also want to be able to have this be a toggle for the number. So it's going to be a number field. And no, it's not going to be a calculating field. It will be a number field. The reason why it's a number field is because it allows you to then be able to, what is the word? You'll be able to essentially add to this, which will seem like it's calculating. So I hope that makes sense. But I'm going ahead and adding that there. And so I've added that number field there. And now I need to go ahead and update this so that it can reflect on this page. So I'm going to go ahead and save and refresh. Again, I'm a big savey girly. Got to make sure I save. And then now that I've done that, I'm going to go to this field here. I've already labeled it what I like. I've already updated all the colors, but I need to now set this custom number field to what I've just created, which is that 1040 process update. Now that I've marked it as update, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And you can see that it templates it out to see what it will look like when it fills. I don't like the color contrast, so I'm going to play around with it for a second so that you can see what it looks like if I do play around with it. And I like this better. Remember that the default will show it as the white at the bottom, so maybe not this specific color should be a background. So I'm gonna, instead of it being this beautiful color, I'm just gonna make it black and then have it as it fills in be that beautiful blue color so that it can have that contrast of colors, even though his colors are very beautiful. Instead, then if I wanted to add some contrast in color, I can make this button color the background color of what he normally uses. And I think I already have a color selected for it. Yep. So I'm just going to add that as the color itself. So now you can see it's like this, but I'm going to default the styling to the text for black. And if I wanted to, I can change the color on hover, which means that on hover, it'll be a different color as well as the text will be different. And so you can see that's updated, but if I hovered over it in a preview, you'll see it change color. Pretty cool. I just did a lot. I hope you kept up. And then last but not least, when they actually get to a step where you need them to approve, it would be toggled through the project. So let's go over to projects. I'm just going to hit save over here. We're going to go over to projects, and I'm going to go over to the templates because that is where all the things will happen. And I'm going to go specifically over to the 1040 one here, and I'm going to just click on it to edit it. These are all the tasks that I have that's created here. And, oh, nope, this is not the one. We're gonna go over to, I'm gonna just search for it. It might be a little bit easier for me to do that. I believe this is the one here. And I'm going to simply just edit it. Now, if this is not the one and I need to update something different, I can. This is not it either. And this is why I believe the naming conventions are so key in the process, because you may not realize how things might really affect the process. So give me a second. Let me find this specific task that I need. That's not the one. Okay, so after some digging, I was able to find this one, which is not the original one that I showed early in the video, but I am going to blur some of this out because this is clients, private information. However, I'm going to show you quickly how we're going to update these navigations really quick. So I'm speaking specifically on this progress bar here. So depending again on how many tasks you have, you would then make sure to update it accordingly. But at this level, I'm going to go ahead and hit manage automation. And then I'm simply going to add this automation, and I'm going to go to custom field value, and I'm going to find that number field. So it's going to be the 1040. Now, this is why it's important to use a number field, because in this process, this number field can be a calculation field. So if I start off with 10, then if I go further and I keep moving forward, then I can add 5 and I can add another 5, I can add 5. So it continues that process, and then it will continually fill this bar. It's a game changer. If you didn't know, now you know, because it's my super short show. If you didn't get that, I'm sorry. It just showed my age. And then you have the ability to just keep going through the process. Again, this is all from the prospect of the client. And the next step will be to do the approval. So when you get to that space, then you have the draft that you want to send to the client. So at this stage, you would want to make sure that you manage this automation to remove them from the circle that they're in. So I'd circle add and circle again just to remove. And you're going to remove them from the updates page. And then you're going to put them back at the approval page. And so this is where they'll be landing once they do that. Now you can always toggle them back to the updates page if you wanted to, but what can happen as well is that you can navigate them to another approval page if you wanted to. But through this process, you can see that they're making any final adjustments. They're going to finalize the tax return, and they're going to file it accordingly. So I would say when they get to the file tax return location, I would actually then go back here and I would automate this to say, once they've gotten to this step and they are even not even at this filing, I would say once they go to the finalized tax return location, then I would actually update the circle, because at that point you know that they're already in the space where they're about to move them anyway. So I would add them over to the filing circle, and then I'm going to remove them from that approval circle. So this will be saved. I will say this is a very intricate space, because the first thing you want to do is make sure you literally take all of the tasks that you have, think about them accordingly, and then from that space you want to go ahead and navigate into the whole process of getting all the things, all the emails. I normally create emails for every step. So if they're at step 1, okay, perfect. Then that means that now step 1 means that they will get an email just to know, or they'll get a simple notification to say, hey, check your portal to see any updates, because that'll notify them at every step. Once they go through this process, then now when they're at the next step stage, my thought process is for them to do that at the schedule for follow-up. You can continually make different stages here, add current circles if you want to, but that's what gives you the ability to just have the customization. And then each year, once they start back the process, they're able to start it from afresh and be able to navigate thoroughly, right? And what I like about this download block, so let me show you why I use a download block. Download blocks are very dynamic. So if I were to always save files into a folder for a client, so I would create on the folders side of it, I would create a folder called, and the path could be called approval, right? And every client will have that same folder. And this is why a folder generator is so important, because every client will have that same folder. And when they have that same folder, then you'll be able to always have them go into this approval space, and it'll show the file that you've saved in there so that they can download it. So on their screen, they can be able to click this button that allows them to see it, and this button that allows them to download. Once they do that, then they have the ability to see it, review it. I always also add another form. This form is what would then be either the indicator to say, hey, I've approved it. It can send you a message, or it could just be a simple form to say, I've reviewed this, and it could be a text block that allows them to add information that they want to update, or it could just simply say, hey, I've approved this, this is good to go. That gives you a notification, and then you can proceed with your task list. Or if you prefer to have them simply just approve it without you even making any changes to your task list, then you can do that as well, which gives you the accessibility to just not have to move them manually or push a button here to mark it complete. It will just allow them to just go to the next circle, and that next circle will then be what they fill out. Sorry, my baby's sleeping on me. So yeah, so that will be the next step that they do. And then at that filing space, they'll be able to simply see that you're filing it. You don't have to have a download block here. This was just a duplication. You can just have another animation to say, hey, we're doing all the things, we're filing. And then the next step stage would be clearly what you want them to do next. So maybe it's going to be a review block. I like to use, and if you're not familiar with this, I would say this is a great feature for you to implement. I like to use a button that has a custom field created. I did make a video on this, but that custom field allows you to use a staff submit form that allows you to upload a link, say it's a Loom link, that says, hey, I want you to review this process with me. I'm the type of person will have a video here, or I might have text depending on what type of person you are. And that video will say, hey, I took the time to complete your taxes, and I wanted you to make sure that you can review it with me. This is the review video. Please click the link below and you'll be able to view that. And then when they click the video, it takes them to Loom, it takes them to Komodo, which is what I use. It takes them to whatever, or even you can say, hey, let's schedule a call. You guys are busy. As a tax professional, you're busy. So you don't have the ability to just sit and try to do that. So you can just create that video, have them review it here, and then move forward with your day. As you can see over here, they like to conduct the meeting with the client, which is completely fine. They'll make any final adjustments. After they file, then they go ahead and file the return. They send a confirmation email to them, and from that confirmation, that's great. They schedule the follow-up, and then they go ahead and archive all of the things, because that's a big thing, right? Now, instead of having to send a thank you note, which is also very important, you can just literally put them to another circle that says, thank you. We'll see you again next year. And when you do that, it allows you to just have the clear cut, hi, thank you so much. I really appreciate you going through this process with us. And it gives them the personal touch, but it also allows them to feel connected with you. Once you've done that, you can then remove them from the circle, and you can, again, add all the circles here. Once you remove them from the circle, you can put them to a dashboard or even add them to a returning client circle. And that could be the location where that dashboard has, hey, I want to file another tax return. Or maybe they need to file like a 1065 and a 1040. They can go through that process. But you can trigger different processes at the same time and then have a custom link that says tax processes, and then they can figure out where they are in the process, add their different, you can literally see where they are in the process, but they can navigate different portal pages at the same time. All right, this was a lot, and I really hope that you enjoyed it because I surely did. I gave you a lot of insight, and I know that it may take some time to build out, including the organizers and also the process itself. But I know you can do it. But if you can't, it's okay. We are here to help you to go through this process. Again, my name is Marie. I loved doing this process and I'm still doing it now. But this client is going to have a better tax season because now they have a process where they don't have to just go crazy with the clients to communicate with them about things, and they just have a place where they will feel connected with them to just have a successful tax season. I hope that you have an amazing day. And again, thank you for watching this very, very informative video on SuiteDash. Thanks, SuiteDash.